Hi, this is Rebel Astrology at rebelastrology.blogspot.com. And it's the first one. And where do we begin? We begin at the beginning. In the beginning, in Welsh mythology, there was nothing and it was chaos. And the Mother, Father, all Creator, all Being, sang itself into being by singing its name. And in the Gospel, according to Luke, it says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God, beside thee and me. And in quantum physics, it says that, or just in physics, I guess, it says that there was an empty, chaotic universe with nothing in it. The universe literally didn't exist. Time, space, but was not existent. And in this random field, a random event happened, and it was this one vibration, a tone, not really a tone, there was nothing for a tone to come off of, but something randomly came into being, so tiny, and yet so massive, and its very coming into being necessitated the creating of the universe. Time, space, what have you. Why do I bring that up? Well, whenever I talk to people about astrology, I go out, I talk to them for a while, and at some point I always let slide that I don't believe the planets have any direct power over people's lives. And the first reaction that people have is just stunned. Well, then what are you doing? What's going on with that? Well, here's the deal. If you've ever seen a Mandelbrot set or fractal picture, and what it is they take a simple open-ended equation and they extrapolate on it, and then they graph it. And when you do that, you get a Mandelbrot set. And if you look at, or a fractal image, when you graph that image, when you see that image, you can, if you had a computer with an infinite amount of space in it, infinite amount of RAM, infinite amount of memory, etc., you could actually zoom in as tight as you wanted, and that same image, that same pattern would almost recreate itself. Almost, but slight variations, slight variations, but when you look at them, they look the same. Well, the universe was created off of more or less an open-ended equation, and it's extrapolated out, and always extrapolating, always building, always growing, and it's that exact same thing going on. Now, hear me out. Humans have been looking at the skies for as long as we've actually been humans. When they look at the DNA of human beings, they find that there is a point, if you go back far enough, where there was a bottleneck. And what I mean by that is most of our ancestors went extinct, maybe very suddenly, and there were only a few of us left, and there we were. And in fact, we know more or less where we were. We were in the caves on the coast of South Africa, a couple hundred, razor edge, on the edge of not existing anymore. And what did we do? We looked out at the sea. We turned to the sea. For along the coast were mollusks that grew on the rocks. But to get to those mollusks, we had to discover something that had never been done before. We had to discover time. And time had always existed. The sun had come up, the sun had come down, winter had come, summer had come. But what hadn't happened before is the extrapolation of time in an abstract sense, of an ability to plan. Humans looked out up at the sky and saw the moon and planned the tides. It's in astrology, the story of Capricorn, the sea goat, is one of the few stories that doesn't originate with the Greek. And many of them originate before the Greek, but it doesn't really get amended into a Greek story. It goes back to a Syrian story of a god that was half man, half with a fish's tail, that would crawl out of the ocean every day. And it taught the people time and math and science and writing. Those are the gifts of Saturn, which in Greek is Chronos, time itself. Kronos slew the sky god, and freed the earth. And on that edge of the world, on the edge of oblivion, humanity looked up and saw the moon. And we've been watching the stars ever since. Like, and telling our kids and looking for patterns. And if you look long enough at anything, you can discern that near pattern, that beautiful near pattern. And we've been passing on this data within families, eventually within books, within extrapolating on it, and as people change, our needs for it change, and what we look for changes. But we've been passing on that information ever since. Maybe one of the biggest pieces of data that we have. And so I don't stare into the sky. I don't look to astrology looking for my masters. I look into the sky. I look into astrology to hear the extrapolation of that first grand note. And from that, we can look into our lives and see the resonance, see not resonance, the pattern. The map doesn't cause there to be a turn to the left, right? But you can look at it and see the turn. More than that, when you realize that astrology is not about seeing something that has power over you, but rather about mapping a vibration. Not an outcome, a vibration. It's mapping a potential energy that's going through the world, through yourself, through all these things. If that's the case, I, as a thinking thing, as something that can make that decision, I that can plan, I who have conquered that eternal idea of time, I can choose to use that ripple. I can choose to take that tide. I can choose to learn a skill that allows me to take any tide more gracefully. And that's why it's Rebel Astrology, Change Your Stance. And the most beautiful, beautiful, beautiful thing is that consciousness is a fascinating pattern. And just because there isn't a creator, per se, just because there's only a tone, I do not wonder, but deeply know that the pattern of consciousness is part of that repeating pattern in the universe on all scales. What a fascinating and incredible world. And if you like this, keep an eye open. There's going to be more. You can also email me if you have any questions about astrology or metaphysics or anything else. I'll give you my best answer. I don't know everything. I'm just riding the current with y'all. And if you're interested in some astrological-based clerical counseling, well, the email is rebelastrologer at gmail.com. And pass this along. Thanks.